Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis, and my name is Juggi Bhasin. So last week, Kangana Ranaut was in the news, and the reason being, of course, that the party, her own party, had publicly reprimanded her for speaking out of turn on the farmers' issue. The idea really being that she had said a few inappropriate things which could probably hurt the party's interest in the upcoming Haryana polls. That's one way of looking at the problem. The other way of looking at the entire issue could be that was it male patriarchy in the party striking and silencing a young, fiery woman's voice in the party? Two different ways of looking at this particular issue. I will tell you what my own thoughts and feelings are on this particular issue, but a little later in the podcast, I want you to listen to the podcast. It's a very interesting podcast because I will not only be talking of Kangana Ranaut, I'll be talking of this entire issue vis-a-vis women in general, in terms of empowerment of women, in terms of that even today, is male patriarchy a very big thing, not only in political parties, but in corporates, in the private sector, and so many other places? And at one level, we give lip service, but at another level, we practice male patriarchy. Is that really the case? I will talk of all that in this podcast. But before that, I would, of course, as always, urge all of you to please subscribe to my channel. Subscription to my channel is so very simple. All you have to do is to press that red button on your screen. Subscription is, of course, completely free. And I would also appreciate if you could like the video, and you could share the video also if you like the video with your friends, your colleagues, and your peers. That's very, very encouraging. So thank you for listening to this message, of course. And then let's go right back and dive back into the main issue that we are discussing in this podcast. Now, before I even talk of the larger question of women empowerment and the issue of Kangana Ranaut here, let me first talk of the ruling dispensation, that is the ruling party, the BJP, which has taken actually some trail-blazing initiatives as far as women empowerment are concerned. I will just quickly go over a checklist. I'm not going to discuss them in great detail, but the point which I'm making is that some really interesting initiatives have been taken. The first major one, of course, being the Women's Reservation Bill, which will come into force a few years from now. But when it does, there's no question about it, it will change the face of Indian politics. That's the first major initiative. Then there are some very interesting schemes which are being tried on the ground. Schemes like Lakpati Didi, schemes like Drone Didi. Drone Didi is a very interesting scheme where up to, I think, rupees 8 lakhs is provided to women to buy drones. And these drones are then used or operated by drone Didis or women to track crop development in fields in the rural areas. And then there is again a very interesting scheme which was started in Madhya Pradesh, which actually a lot of people feel was the main reason why the BJP swept elections in Madhya Pradesh. That is, of course, the Ladli Behan scheme. And a very similar scheme has recently been started in Maharashtra called the Mukhyamantri Ladki Behan Yojana. In both these schemes, I think in the Madhya Pradesh scheme, women are given up to rupees 1,000 every month. Obviously, they have to be of a certain income level, below a certain income level, and the same applies also in Maharashtra. But that, I think, is not 1,000; it is 1,500 rupees. 1,500 is given to women there. So, in short, these are very, very empowering. These are very interesting. These schemes for women actually give them financial security. They empower them to stand on their own feet. No question about it. And then look some other positives which the ruling dispensation has done. They have some outstanding people at the helm of affairs. The biggest icon, of course, being Nirmala Sitharaman, the country's finance minister. Everybody knows, even though people who might not agree with our financial acumen or our financial vision or our financial policies, but everyone agrees that she is a mature voice, she's a reasonable voice, she has also done a lot of financial astuteness. She is a great role model for women, no question about it. And the other very prominent figure, of course, is Madhavi Buch, who has been in the news recently, the head of SEBI. So there are some very prominent women who have been, who have been there. The government, the ruling dispensation, has been instrumental in bringing them at the helm of affairs at the very highest levels. No question about it. And yet, I'm arguing in this podcast that besides all these schemes and some very important and prominent faces and names, by and large, is still lip service given to women empowerment. Is it the fact that the empowerment is actually more on paper rather than on the ground? Because at the drop of the hat, when it comes to the crunch, as they say, when it really, really matters, then male patriarchy strikes, as a lot of people felt that it struck in this particular case, in the case of Kangana Ranaut. So what exactly is the problem? Let me try and define the problem for you. I'm trying to search for the right expression, the right words, but here's the problem. All these schemes are empowering, all the ideas are good, prominent women are there also in the national limelight, but the fact is that there is a certain kind of a perception of a kind of a woman who is being eulogized within the ruling dispensation. But when it comes to voices which are, as I said, not only young, but which are very fiery, which are very outspoken, voices which have a mind of their own, which don't tread a particular line, then I'm arguing that that's a ruling dispensation, and I do not want to confine it only to the ruling dispensation. Also, I think that same thing applies to other political parties also. Do these political parties then clam up, or they silence these voices? There's a particular kind of a woman which, the projection is made, but when it comes to these outspoken, these voices which are not afraid at all, then something goes wrong somewhere. So let's start with the case of Kangana Ranaut. Who exactly is Kangana Ranaut? We all know, of course, that she is very versatile, probably one of the most brilliant actresses of this country, no question about it. I mean, I've seen some of her films. She's a natural actor. She's not so much as a trained actor or method actor. She's a natural actor, and she is absolutely brilliant in whatever she does. But the backstory of Kangana Ranaut is, I think, even more important than the roles she plays. She has come up in the film industry the very bitter, hard way, and she has been very open about it. There has been exploitation. There have been jeering, people have sneered at her, people have made fun of her. There was, of course, you remember the famous case of that interview with Karan Johar, where Karan Johar was making fun of her in his Coffee with Karan show. All those controversies are there, the controversies with some leading actors. So there is an entire background to Kangana Ranaut. A lot of it is messy, which is again a very polite term which I am using. But the fact also is, the other part of her is, and then when she was targeted by the government, that is the government before this, and parts of her house were broken down. All those controversies we all remember. But the striking feature of this lady is that she is, at the end of the day, a fighter. She's a person who fights back, and she fights back. She's outspoken. She voices her mind. She voices her opinion, and she does it two ways. One is, of course, through her roles. She has enacted or she has depicted very, very powerful characters and roles on the screen. But the other way, which is her calling card, if you ask me, is through her social media posts. She is very prolific on Twitter. She's very prolific on other social media platforms, and she lets go. She voices her mind, and then the fight she gave to the Congress candidate in Mandi, and she won that particular election, as we all know. And the Congress candidate was, of course, from the royal family from Himachal, a very, very prominent political family also, but she defeated him. So, a lot of feathers in her cap, a lot of achievements also behind her. She is not, some person you can say who can be taken lightly. This is Kangana Ranaut for you. But again, somebody where people love to go after her. The opposition goes after her. She has been called all kinds of names. She has been depicted in very, very in a manner which is absolutely impolite. I can't even describe that. But she has braved all that. And for a girl like that, for a woman like that, to be publicly admonished by her own party is a sad state of affairs. And therefore, the striking feature which I find is that she has 2 or 3 qualities which are very similar to 2 other very prominent features, prominent ladies, political personalities in the ruling dispensation. And the 2 other prominent personalities are the second one being, of course, Nupur Sharma, and the third one, surprisingly, is also Smriti Irani. And here's what is common between all 3 ladies. All of them are terrific communicators. All 3 of them. Kangana Ranaut, Nupur Sharma, Smriti Irani, in different ways and on different platforms, but they are excellent communicators. They're all young. They are the restless, young and restless, as we say. They are very forceful. They project. They know how to project themselves very, very effectively. And they don't shy away from controversies. They don't play it safe. They don't tread particular lines. They will speak their mind. And that is the commonality in all 3 people. And guess what is the other thing, the 4th thing which is common in all 3 ladies? All of them have been put down, I'm very sorry to say, by the ruling dispensation. Kangana Ranaut, her case is right up there. A lot of people are wondering that even assuming she had stepped out of the line on to commenting on the farmers' issue, why was a public letter of reprimand issued to her? Some people in the party, senior people in the party, could have probably spoken to her in private, maybe kind of given some kind of a caution that it could hurt our poll prospects. That could have been probably done, fair enough. Why was she publicly reprimanded? Was it sending a message to other younger people? Don't open your mouths, because we will not tolerate that, especially to young women leaders. The same thing people are saying applies to Nupur Sharma also. She has been in the political wilderness. She was actually a fearless voice to that extent, and a very telegenic, photogenic personality on television. And for the last 2 years, she has been in the political wilderness. She makes appearances once in a while, but her life is under threat. She's always surrounded by security. You provide all the security to her, and yet you don't rehabilitate her politically. It makes no sense to people. And the third very interesting case is, of course, that of Smriti Irani. Smriti Irani was, in fact, to that extent, all over the place, in the sense she was giving interviews left, right, and center. She had taken on Rahul Gandhi, as we all know that. But then the tides of political change happened. She lost the battle. She was defeated in her turf. But does that mean that then you take her out, you drop her out of the system? Once in a while now she makes an appearance, but she has not been rehabilitated. She has not been given any important position, and she is, all said and done, a very important, a very strongly communicative, effective voice, but she is again out in the political wilderness. And the point which is being driven home, maybe deliberately or not deliberately, I don't know about that. But the fact is, all 3 women, all 3 young, fearless, communicative, very strong women in their own right, independent-minded women, have all been, in a sense, within quotes, been put in their place. They have been almost like banished in the political wilderness. And therefore, the answer which I was talking about, which I would give in the podcast, is very, very clear. Yes, does seem to be a case of a very stodgy kind of a mentality, a very old-fashioned kind of a mental attitude which is at work here. I wouldn't go so far as to call it male patriarchy. I don't think that somebody is deliberately being patriarchal out here, but there is this old bureaucratic, stodgy mentality at work which is drowning the voices of these young, restless, fearless women and trying to replace it with some kind of a bureaucratic, very, very old-fashioned stereotypes. And therefore, the question which I am also posing in this particular podcast is this. What is the larger projection of women do you want to make in a political party? At one level, of course, there is the projection of people like Nirmala Sitharaman, people like Madhvi Bhojana. These are very accomplished ladies. These are actually veterans of the corporate world, of the financial system, and they, of course, deserve to be there. They have done some absolutely outstanding work, and these are mature voices. These are important voices. But the fact is, like there are men, and so it is the case with women, there is an entire spectrum of different kind of women. And especially the younger lot. The younger lot, of course, will mature, they will learn a lot as they go along. But to be young and restless is to be outspoken, is to be fearless. That's the whole idea of being young and restless, male or female, it doesn't make a difference. And therefore, if there are these voices, female voices, who are also aspiring in politics, or rather who are in politics, and if they are speaking, maybe sometimes they are speaking out of turn. And by the way, I have to say something out here in terms of speaking out of turn. What Kangana Ranaut said regarding the farmers issue technically was correct, by the way. She gave instances of rapes and suicides, and those things have actually happened in the farmers' protest. We all know that. And therefore, it could have been let go. Maybe yes, there is another point of view that it could have maybe an impact on poll prospects. But again, as I said, those things could have been spoken of in private. But the whole idea of being young and being independent-minded is that you speak your mind, and these people are speaking their mind. And therefore, if you have mature people like Nirmala Sitharaman on one end of the spectrum, then on the other end of the spectrum, you need these young, fearless voices. Outside Parliament, inside Parliament also. And in a very strange way, even though a lot of things which another parliamentarian like Mahua Moitra, for instance, of the TMC, she says, which I certainly don't agree with. But the fact also is that her party backs her up. They don't admonish her, they don't reprimand her. She gets away with saying, because her party backs her completely to the hilt. For that matter, even Supriya Srinath of the Congress party, she is backed by her party. Again, one can agree or not agree with her, but she's there, she's out there, she's talking on television every day. They back her. Why is it that in the ruling dispensation, suddenly everybody develops cold feet, and ostensibly, as I said, at least on the surface, it appears some kind of a male patriarchy is kicking in, and you start silencing these young, fearless voices? That's a serious question which I think we need to think about, we need to debate. Let me take you also to another very interesting development which is taking in the world, which is a bearing on this particular matter. Look at the rise and rise and rise of Kamala Harris. And who is Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris is relatively a young lady, a black stroke brown woman who is pitching in for the job of the President of the United States. And by all accounts, at the moment at least, she's ahead of the other front runner, or was the front runner sometime back, that is President Trump. And who do you think is backing her? Who do you think is pushing her? What is the real reason why she's doing so well in the opinion polls so far? It is the young millennials. It is the younger generation. It is the younger lot, the educated people, all the university people. They are backing her to the hilt. And it is not as if Kamala Harris has not made mistakes. We all know that. She has fumbled on so many times. She has been all over the place so many times. There are social media posts of her where she's not making any sense. There are other personality traits which sometimes don't connect or don't make sense. But so what? She is a young person, she is a fearless voice, and she's making waves. And that's the point which I'm making. The energy, the charisma the magnetic power, I would say, of a younger person, an older, mature person can't match that. No question about it. And that is why people, especially I'm talking of America, they're preferring Kamala Harris at the moment, at least, to President Trump. I don't know what's going to happen in the election. But that's a lesson for us, that when you start silencing younger voices in your own party, then you are asking for trouble. You are asking, then the party is heading towards a bit of a problem. And that is exactly what is going on out here. Then, in a larger sense, this question of male patriarchy is not only, I would say, confined to the political space also, even though we have come a long way since the last few years. It is a problem which actually spills over in practically every arena in life, especially in the corporate world. Now, I'll give you a very interesting rule which is there applied in the corporate world, that today all companies are obligated. They have to, by law, they have to have independent women directors, which is one way of empowering women. And the other point being that you have a woman's voice, you have a different perspective on these boards of companies. But guess what? What do companies do? Corporates do? I'm not saying all corporates do that, but certainly a lot of corporates still do that. What they do is, in the name of these independent women directors, they bring in their family women members, especially the pliable women members who will agree to everything what either the husband says or the family says, and they put them on boards, and therefore they stifle those independent voices. So I'm saying this is not only a problem which is now confined to the political system, it is of course there in the corporate world as there. And even today, despite all the change, despite all the big names we keep hearing of the Indra Nuis of the world, of the Madhavi Butchers of the world and all that, but even today, traditionally women are, they go forth, or they rise more spectacularly in media companies, in tourism, in travel, the hotel trade maybe. And what I'm really saying is that within quotes, the soft industries rather than the hard industries, even today, women are not so much pushed, encouraged, or they are allowed to go up to the top level. So it's a problem which is there, which is not only in the political system, it is there in the private sector, in the corporate system also. And therefore, in summation, towards coming to the end of this podcast, what I would really like to say is that for the ruling dispensation especially, because the idea is we talk about the ruling dispensation more about talking of the opposition. For the ruling dispensation, the challenge therefore becomes is that it has to match its rhetoric with what is actually happening on the ground. As I said, on paper, its schemes, its ideas, its push towards women empowerment is laudatory. It is important, it is meaningful. Hopefully we'll have all good things will come out of it. But again, as I'm saying, a lot of this stuff is on the ground. Also, when you honor women, you're honoring women maybe on a certain achievement. For instance, like Manu Bhaker, the shooter, and she was obviously honored by the ruling dispensation, but by the entire country, really, for that matter. But women empowerment is not about once in a while being honored. Women empowerment, or the fact is, women should be supported on a daily basis. They have to be encouraged to not only sit along the same high table with men, but to actually sit on even higher tables with men. And that is a continuous process. And you have to hold yourself back. You have to stop this patriarchal, this old-fashioned, this bureaucratic, this stodgy way of public reprimands. All these things have to come to a stop. Really encourage these young voices to be heard. We want to hear these voices. These are interesting voices. These are different voices, because at the end of the day, the challenge really for the ruling party is that the array of women leaders in the party should be multi-dimensional, should be multi-layered. They can't all be of the likes of Madhavi Butch and Nirmala Sitharaman. They have also to be of the Nupur Sharma kind. They have to be of the Kangana Ranaut kind, younger, fearless, more aggressive voices. They have to be encouraged. Because if you start pushing them down, if you start silencing them, if you start, as they say, taping their mouths, then you are asking for a problem, then you are asking for problems to hit your party. And therefore, I would like to end this podcast on, as I said, on this cautionary note that these voices need to be heard. They don't need to be stifled, not at all. And so on this note, I come to the end of this podcast. I hope you liked this podcast and you like my show. Please do subscribe to it. And on this note, it's goodbye and cheers. Till next time.